Right on. So we've
Cool.
got Russ Cullum here with Lone Wolf Realty and Caldwell Banker.
Yep.
Newer agent. No reason to sugarcoat it, but I love having newer agents on
Yeah,
because
third year.
third year.
Yep. Going.
Bring that mic closer to you.
Good.
No. Stand by.
Test.
Go now.
Test. There we go. That's louder.
All right, Russ, we're starting from the top here.
Yep.
Russ Cullum from Caldwell Banker and Lone Wolf Realty coming in to kind of talk a little bit about what he's been doing real estate-wise, and then, newer agent, and we want to put that out there, not as a bad thing, but one of the things I really enjoy about having newer agents on, and I didn't tell you this before the podcast, but I want to keep this podcast kind of real estate driven,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of business owners from other types of businesses, CPAs, financial advisors, everything like that, because there's an entrepreneurial aspect to being a real estate agent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's good to kind of get those, what I like to call tidbits or nuggets from people who are super veterans to people who've been in it for a few years. And then obviously, comparison to someone like yourself who's been doing this for how long now?
I'm in my third year now.
Okay.
So I just did my 2-year renewal. Just got it done like 2 weeks ago. So I'm in my third year.
Yeah, so not brand new.
No.
But
Well, I did. So I'm in my third year now, but for the first year, I was not full time. I was a ops manager for CarMax.
gotcha.
I made the jump to full time, fully diving in very, very recently.
Okay.
Yep.
So 3 years in, not super new, but one of the things that I always ask newer agents is like, if I'm thinking about being a real estate agent, which ironically I've been getting a ton of people who have been coming up to me, and here we are in somewhat of a slow market, and they're like, I'm thinking about being a realtor.
Yeah.
And I'm literally thinking in the back of my mind, don't do it. But everyone's got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it right, and it doesn't matter what market you start in, because really that 3-year timeline, in my opinion, is when you really start to see the benefit.
Yep.
And so one of the first questions I just want to ask in general is, what would you have done differently 3 years in now, looking back, that like, man, I wish if I knew what I knew now, what's the piece of advice you'd give to someone who's just starting?
So I've had some friends that have asked me that have been interested in it. And the first thing is just make sure you save. You have a savings. Don't go into it needing that next paycheck, because you're not going to get it for a minute. It takes a while. It kind of snowballs. You have to build up. And then now I'm getting inquiries from people that saw a Facebook ad from 6 months ago, and it all just starts to accumulate. But definitely have a plan going into it. I'm still in the middle of like a 3-year plan that I put together for this. And my thought process was, so 2020, it went crazy and everybody became a real estate agent. I got in, I started really going toward the end of that. And my thought process was, okay, it is slowing down. It's a slower market. I'm going to start now while I have a decent savings. Me and my wife are doing good in the financial realm. We're not well off by any means, but we're okay. We can pay our bills.
You're paying the bills. I get it.
And we can cover most of our expenses with her salary. So now's the time for me to start. While it's slow, I'm going to make all the mistakes I'm ever going to make in this slow period.
Right.
That way, when the frenzy comes back around, I'll be able to knock out a contract in 10 minutes and just rock and roll and just learn as much as I can now while I have the time to learn. We're right in the middle of it, and I'm definitely learning a lot. It's much different than people think. People just think it's amazing. You just go open a door. It's not true whatsoever. But it's been a good journey so far.
So you're part of a team, like I said, Lone Wolf Realty with Caldwell Banker. And what kind of value add do you feel like as a new agent that you're getting from being on a team?
I think a newer agent, you almost have to be on a team, because I have people I can call for any question. Sometimes I feel annoying because I ask so many questions, but I'm still going to do it. And they have the experience. I mean, collectively, it's crazy how much experience the whole team has. There's some newer agents, and then guys like Matt that have been doing it a long time, Bobby, who's on our team. Between those 4 people, there's an answer to every question.
Sure.
I've never had anything come up and if it is something weird, we talk about it together. We say, hey, this is a little strange. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And we figure out an answer as a team. So it's amazing as a new agent, because I don't see how I would get a lot of this stuff done if I didn't have people to lean on that hard.
Right.
Yep.
What about the potential value add as a client, like buyer or seller? Is there a value add in
Yeah,
dealing with a real estate agent that's on a team?
definitely. I mean, that's a thing when you first start out is people ask you how long you've been a real estate agent. And my kind of steer for that into the right direction is, I don't really say that I've been doing this for a short time, but I say on my team, we have blank this much experience. I'm a part of a team of this many people. We can put our heads together, and you can kind of use that as a selling point to better serve the client.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and being on a team as well, not only do you have other agents with knowledge and experience, and, hypothetically, if you're out of pocket with another client or even out of town,
Yeah.
you've got teammates that
true.
can kind of pick up the slack there.
Mhm.
But I believe you guys also have, some staff, if you will, that is involved in doing some of the paperwork or
Yeah.
clerical work behind the scenes.
Yeah, we have transaction managers. So they say in real estate, an agent, you should be doing, income producing activities. So it's very personality, like it's a certain personality that's going to be good as a real estate agent. And it's usually the people that are good at talking to people, at like guiding people through things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we should focus on. Transaction managers will do all the stuff that you don't need a license for, really. So they'll fill out paperwork, they'll send emails to the right people. Between the title company and your transaction manager, after you get them to where they want to be, you're pretty hands off with it. You're always there to assist, get whatever you need to get. You're very involved, but you almost don't have to be. It kind of gets handled after that.
And that gives you more time freed up to basically attend to your clients.
Yep. Show houses, do social media, whatever you need to do. That's the kind of stuff you're focusing on mostly.
Well, and the reason why I'm kind of drilling in on this is because with this podcast, the idea is to get this in front of people who might have a hesitancy to contact a real estate agent right away because they're in the early process of maybe thinking about buying or selling.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that whole team dynamic is something that the average person, number one, doesn't know about.
Yeah.
And even if they do, they don't understand, well, what's in it for me, right? They think,
definitely.
well, yeah, it's helping them out. It's freeing up time for them. But if you have a real estate agent that's a part of a team, you've got all your bases covered, transaction coordination, everything along those lines. Now you have a real estate agent that can really focus on your needs, whether it's with the listing of a property or buying a property.
Yeah.
And I think that people who are a part of that just need to bring it up more.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. It makes everything easier. If you're a good agent, you should have multiple irons in the fire. But with a team, it can feel like you're just focusing on that one, and you have more time to dial into the needs of that client instead of thinking fractionally. Like I have 10% to give this client, 10%. You have almost 100% for every client.
Right. So if I'm selling my home, for example, and I'm doing interviews, I mean, I guess one of the questions is, do you have a team behind you?
Yeah.
If you're going to list my property, do you have a team behind you that's going to, make sure, or even if I'm a buyer, maybe I'm a first-time home buyer, and I'm like, Russ, listen, I've never done this before. I'm scared. I've got a lot of questions. I'm going to require a lot of your attention. You can say, hey, I'm a part of this entire team where, like, there isn't going to be any time, of course, within reason, some of these buyers, but within reason, like, we got you.
Yeah.
Where a single
There's
agent,
nothing we can't do.
Might find themselves scrambling around doing paperwork, like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't take your call right now. I'm in the middle of writing a contract for another client, things like that.
And we're with Coldwell Banker, which is a full service brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take it to a level above that by having a team.
Right.
So even, your most high end full service brokerage, even within that, a team adds to the service you can get. So it's exactly what you said. There's a lot of ways to describe it to the client, but it's like we will have your back 100%. There's nothing you need that we can't do.
I love it. I had Matt and Kaylee on here earlier in the week, and they're part of your team. And I heard a rumor that you're a runner.
Yeah.
You do a lot of running, and I guess there's some videos out there of you kind of showing off the city and doing all that.
Yeah, I was trying to blend it because it's easier to do these things when you enjoy it.
Sure.
It's harder for me to talk about, cars as I'm not into cars, but running I can actually describe well. So I did a video of like the best running spots in Austin.
Okay.
For people moving here.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm trying to put together now. It's been a little more complicated than I thought, but I want to do a running group, like real estate runners, where we go and we tour a neighborhood, maybe one of the suburbs, Georgetown, Liberty Hill, and we do a run through some of the new build neighborhoods and kind of make it a weekly thing. I got some people that are on board. I got a Fleet Feet, which is a running store. They said they'd be into kind of sponsored or maybe provide refreshments or something like that.
Sure.
But we're putting that together now.
Well, there it is. Other real estate agents that like to run. We got a guy who wants to put something like that together. And I'll tell you right now, I've seen things like that in other markets. And what you really need to do, find a charity.
Yeah.
Right?
And run for that charity.
Or even, think about this, maybe a builder who's got a new community.
Yeah, that's
that
a good
wants
idea.
real estate agents to come and view the community.
Yeah.
Run the community. Right?
Great idea.
But I brought up the video because they'd made mention of it, because one of the things we talk about is obviously generating new business, going back to that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So currently, I know some of the things you've probably done in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, but to keep things as relevant as we can, is there anything right now, and the running is obviously one of them, the videos, is there anything else right now that seems to really be working for you that's generating either listings or buyers or just attention in general?
So for me, to me, your sphere, your personal sphere is always going to be your bread and butter.
Yep.
But take advantage of the technology we have now.
Okay.
It's insane. You can get on the Matrix when you post your listing. If you get a listing, you can immediately create with one click of a button, you can create a Facebook ad, social media ads. Like promoting on social media is easier than ever. And it costs a little money. You have to pay. It's usually you pay for like 15 days or 20 days at $5 a day. It's kind of how they break it down, but it's worth it. And that's another thing going back to new agents. You have to spend money to get yourself out there. You just do. So I have a breakdown percentage-wise of basically this is what I keep for taxes at the end of the year. This is my advertising budget. This is what I move to my savings. Just be very diligent about how you spend your money, but you are going to have to pay for some of it.
Yeah.
Facebook is great. We get a lot of leads from that. There is lead services you can buy that tie into your CRM. Those are great as well, but you just have to – you can't just sit there and say I'm a real estate agent and expect to get new people coming in because everybody knows somebody. You have to be proactive and getting your name out there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like real estate is one of the only businesses where individuals do go into it where the entry levels, let's face it, it's pretty low. You've got to pass an exam and everything along those lines. And I don't know. What does it cost roughly of, your classes and an exam and everything?
I think I paid for the kind of mid-tier one where you get a bunch of practice exams, and it was like $700.
Right. So for under $1,000 initial investment, you can become a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I'm like, I want to, hats off to you is like, I can't tell you how many agents that I meet with that are newer, and we talk about just running a business in general.
Yeah.
Right. And what I mean by that is like you can sit down with a real estate agent and say, okay, you're going to need to make sure that when you do a transaction, you're going to set aside money for your taxes. You're going to set aside money for a marketing budget. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean marketing budget? Yeah, and what blows my mind is that I don't think, well, there's very few businesses that you could go into business with a $700 initial investment, right? Like if I said I was going to open up a HVAC company, I'd need to get trucks. Yep. I'd need to get equipment.
There's overhead for everything.
Even if I didn't want to market, there's a bunch of overhead for me to just enter into running an HVAC business. And if I went out and went to a bank and said, hey, I need a loan. I've got a business plan. Here's what I need. I need $20,000, right? No friend or family member, or even the bank for that matter, would say, that's crazy. Like they'd go, no, that makes sense. Like you're starting a business.
That's a good point.
But if you're a real estate agent and you spend $700 to get your license, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm going to make a $20,000 initial investment in my business. People are like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't need that. Yes, you do.
It's like, well, I've just seen it too many times. It's like I've said the number is like 3 years or a $100,000 initial investment. Whichever one's, you can obtain first is where you'll start to see success.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't take 3 years to close a deal, but
to where you're ticking the needle in the upward direction,
right.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
I priced a bunch of stuff, and that's why I'm saying Facebook and social media advertising is kind of the way to go for me. I mean, like you said, I am newer, so maybe there's a different shortcut that I don't know about yet, but I priced traditional media like billboards, things like that.
Sure.
it is outrageous.
Well, and remember, social media, you're not only, it's kind of doing two things for you. You mentioned your sphere,
Sure.
but then in addition to your sphere, you're spending money,
Yep.
right? So where a billboard, I mean, you're going after whoever's driving down I-35,
Traffic, yeah.
right? But
that was just the first thought.
sure,
I'm like,
no, I mean,
advertising, that means billboard, right? And I looked, and the one that I found, so in Austin, actually, there's not many available. They're all taken up, and the one I found was
by Adler and the 444
yeah,
guy.
the Texas Hammer.
Right.
The ones I found were like $6,000 a
Stark.
month for the ones on 35.
Yeah, they're
like
pricey.
So I was okay. I'm not doing that. Let's look at other options, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really started digging in. And there are a lot of options.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still paying for it, but it's not, outrageous for everything. There's things you can do to get your name out there. Things like this. If you get an invite to do a podcast, do it.
Right.
If you get, an opportunity.
Come on my podcast.
Yeah. If you get an opportunity to put your face in front of anything, do it. That's just the way to do it.
I agree. I mean, that's been kind of the slogan of this podcast, is that we've had a lot of people on here that have been fantastic at what they do, whether it's in real estate or just running a business. But every single person on this podcast has been willing to admit to the fact that you could be the best in your business, but if nobody knows who you are,
100%,
you're not killing it. You're not doing the business. I want to come back to your sphere, right? Because I'd say 9 out of 10 agents, that's their initial response, is like, well, my sphere of influence. And to dumb it down for people who are watching, obviously people in our business know what that means, but what does sphere mean to you, and how do you capitalize on it?
So your sphere is family, friends, people that you've known for a while, people that are in your personal space. So ones that aren't lead generated people. It's just people that you happen to know. Maybe it's your baseball coach from 4th grade that is looking for a house. Like anyone that's in your personal life. The way you capitalize on it is it's hard at first. It is. You have to tell everyone and anyone that will listen that you're in real estate, and if you have something good to say, you say it often. So you tell people over and over again. You just keep saying it. It feels very
salesy.
Forward. It is salesy at first, but you learn ways to work it in, and that's another part that goes back to social media. I can tell a lot of people without throwing it in their face. I can just say, hey, I just closed this deal, which is telling them. It's the same thing as saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent, but it's a little easier to digest. So I tell everyone I know. If I'm in a bar with some friends, I try to leave a card there, or I talk about it as much as I can. And you can kind of feel it out. If it gets to the point where like, oh, okay, we get it. You don't have to keep going, but I at least bring it up.
Has that ever happened to you?
Not yet. That was actually part of some of the testing I did I just did the renewal stuff, and they talk about marketing.
Yeah.
And they mention that you can hit a point where you're saying it too much almost. You don't want to annoy people, but you do want to bring it up as much as you can. So I try to do that. I have like the best family on the planet, so they've helped me a lot. They tell everyone, they all have a stack of cards in their pocket ready to go,
awesome.
Which I've told them, like, here's 15 cards. You need to give these out in 2 weeks. And it's a joke, but they help me out a lot with that. So I've been very lucky as a first year, like full-time agent, because I've had a lot of help from family and friends. Most people don't have the opportunities I've had through that. I have a big network of people.
Sure.
And if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be able to keep going as hard as I am. I would have to make some tough decisions. So the sphere has been absolutely everything to me. It's exponential. So if I know 100 people and they know 100 people,
sure.
A lot of those didn't know my name, and now they do. And you just have to keep that snowball going.
Are you doing anything in particular to continue to stay in front of them outside of social media?
So social media is the big one.
Sure.
But I keep in touch through just about everything. I mean, I use my CRM, and I put everybody in that, and then I use notes for that. So I do calendar invites, like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday.
Okay.
Hey, happy birthday. How you doing? You
stay top of mind.
Yeah. You have to be very good at just keeping in touch with people and organizing your activities.
I like that you brought up the fact, though, that in the beginning it's kind of tough, because one of the conversations I had, with another agent, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And the topic was kind of about asking for the business, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
it's hard at first.
Well, what's interesting about it is that we're all super concerned about kind of like what you said, maybe becoming annoying or anything along those lines. And that fear can kind of be crippling.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I have definitely been in situations personally, and then also seen situations where not close friends, but close acquaintances utilize someone else outside of, like, say, you,
Mm-hmm.
and then legitimately say something to the tune of like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot
Yeah.
that you were a real
Which
estate
is
agent."
understandable. If
Well,
you're
it's a
not saying,
dance, right?
yeah.
And so that's like, as you put it, like, there's anything too much of anything can be bad.
Yeah.
But I would venture to say that a lot of the agents that I speak to on this podcast and in general are very much on the other side of the fence, where I don't think they're doing enough to tell friends, family,
Yeah.
and people that they meet, and it's because of those insecurities. And we talk about it on this podcast a lot because I have, we're approaching like 30 guests at this point, and it's
Yeah.
been super interesting to see some people come out the gates and they're just like, they crush it on here, and others are a little, hesitant, and then they walk off and they're like, that was awesome. And then I've got people that have been in this room that like are terrified.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you afraid of? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can look around right now. There's no one in here. We can edit any of this footage. Like,
Yeah.
any,
That's a good point.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like there's a stage or a group of people over there that, if they hear us say something or whatever,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. And I just think about this, like, this fear of being, as you put it, like, annoying.
Yeah.
And I wonder where it comes from. Like, obviously it's insecurity,
Sure.
right? But do you think it's insecurity based on the amount of time you've been in the business? Do you think it's insecurity based on, like,
That's my fear, is the time
Okay.
aspect, like, because I am newer.
Uh-huh.
So I think, to me, the best way to combat that is, one, confidence. But how do you get confidence? From preparing. So that's all I do now, is watch real estate podcasts, real estate YouTubes. Even if I just have it in the background, it's just to absorb that knowledge. Because
Sure.
I personally hate that moment. Everybody's had this moment to where you get asked a question about, maybe it's your profession or whatever, and you don't know the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and you get that heart beats a little fast. Like, I
Yeah.
can't stand that. So
Mm.
I try to avoid that at all costs. So I want to just be prepared for anything that comes up. And I'm not by any means there yet. It'll probably be, even guys like we were saying, like Matt, that have been doing it for decades, they still probably get that moment sometimes.
Well,
But
I'm gonna give you a piece of advice here that I think will help with that.
yeah,
I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I tell everybody it'll take you maybe a year or two to learn 80% of everything that you need to know in this business. And that other 20%, this business is ever changing, and you will never, ever know 100% of what you need to know.
Yep.
And that's because it's ever changing. And then the second part of it is like, look, I'm a big believer in, like, know what you like to do, know where you kind of are happiest and specialize. Because, as an example, early in my career, I tried to dabble in commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm never ashamed when someone's like, "Hey, what do you know about commercial real estate?" My response is flat out like, I mean, a little bit. It's just not what I do.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I think it's important it's okay to say you don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
I mean, I think that, but what you're mentioning is something that's been coming up a lot, and getting out in front of the camera and getting out in front of people and promoting your business. It's a huge hang up for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing at first, because it's like you were saying, it seems like it's almost shameless self-promotion is kind of the feeling you get.
Right.
But it's like, I would rather have people say, "Oh, he keeps saying I'm a real estate," than not pay my bills. Like, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, and again, like, if somebody's annoyed or offended by the fact that I'm, kind of saying, "Hey, here's what I do," and this, I mean, look, I don't have children.
Yeah.
But do you know how many times I sit through, stories and stuff like that about a
That's
child?
good point. Hey, you want to see this picture?
Right. I
Like,
mean,
not really.
we
but
all
okay.
we all have things that, and I'm not like looking at them like, oh my God, they're so annoying or whatever.
That's what's
it's
important to them.
Like,
So,
right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, it's that dance. It's that fine line between promoting yourself and not being annoying. But I'm here to tell you, I think the majority of business owners, real estate agents and everything, they're not doing enough.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it because you're concerned about what other people will think,
Yeah.
my advice is to cut that out. And then if you're not doing it just because you're not doing it, well,
Yep.
that's on you.
Part of it is just, like you said, finding something that you like. Like, I really do like this. I've had a couple. So I was an ops manager for CarMax. I liked it. Great company to work for. If anyone's looking for that kind of job, amazing. But it just didn't fit me. I like having the ability to make those decisions. And in real estate, like every day, you make a decision that just makes you really say, okay, I have to think about what I'm doing. This is a big deal for someone.
Sure.
That didn't happen in that other field. And it just kind of, things just didn't really feel as, I didn't feel like I was in control of what I was doing. So I like that aspect of it. And so I'm going to keep doing it, but you just have to get through those things that maybe you're not comfortable with, because if you're comfortable all the time, you're not going to grow. You're
Sure.
not going to get any better. So I like the fact that I'm doing things that challenge me and that are hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that's with anything,
Yeah.
like you said, if you're not, I know there's a saying, I don't know what it is, but it involves not being comfortable and growing.
Yeah, you have to be uncomfortable. That's the only way you're going to get better.
So right now with you in this industry, the current state of affairs with the market, 3 years in the business, what do you feel like is your biggest pain point right now?
Honestly, it's probably, this is something that I can't control, but I can try to help, is education for buyers and sellers. I feel like people, and you know this more than anybody, people will come in and they'll request these things that are just not going to happen.
Right.
And then I feel like the bad guy that has to tell them, like, this is not going to happen.
Trust me, they know.
Yeah. You want $1 million house, you have a 520 credit score and $75 in your pocket. It's not going to happen. Like, we have to be real. We can't work miracles.
Right.
So I'm trying to educate people. And also, you're the best person to ask about this stuff, but there's so many programs that I feel on the opposite side of that, people a lot of times think they can't when they can. Like,
yeah.
I
know it goes both ways.
That was my problem when we were looking at everything. I was like, oh, we're not ready yet. And then now that I'm in real estate, I'm like, oh, we are way more ready than half the people that I'm helping. Yeah. So there's, what's the one? T-Shack, the grant. That's available to first-time home buyers.
Correct.
The FHA down payment assistance, which does, I think, 4%. And then the lender fee is 1%.
Right. Yes.
So you're paying what, $2,000 on a normal, typical average house here.
Yeah.
There's things you can do. So education, making sure people know what they can and what they can't afford. That is a big one.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest obstacle. So how do we overcome that? How do we, this is one of the ways.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
We educate through people who want to kind of get information online. But outside of that, I've been saying this quite a bit. Real estate is one of those things that's very, very difficult to get people to admit that they kind of don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is about real estate that everybody, and Matt Kemps and I were talking about this, where I feel like because people own a house, that automatically makes them an expert at real estate. Because any other business, whether it be like auto repair, you got tons of people that drive cars and they'll admit they don't know anything about a car. And that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
But you can't not know anything about real estate.
Yeah. Everyone thinks they know exactly what. And a lot of that, I think, is the news, like interest rates, big bad interest rates. But it's actually a great time to buy right now. Yeah. People that are in the industry know that. But everyone I talk to is like, oh, they said interest rates are terrible right now. Can't do it. And like, think about what happens when those interest rates aren't terrible.
Right.
Yeah, that's when.
Well, I think when you're buying, and this is something that I'll try to dispel any kind of confusion in regards to, because a lot of people would argue, well, real estate agents and lenders, they say it's always a good time to buy.
Yeah.
And I think to dispel any kind of confusion is if you don't own a home, it is always a good time to buy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where interest rates are. It doesn't matter where home prices are. If you don't own a home, you have to get into the game. And the problem is that as soon as interest rates go down, we're going to see property values go up, and bidding affordability wars. It's always a seesaw, right?
Yeah.
But if you do own a home, or if you're an investor for that matter, then some of those things are debatable, right? And then we really need to educate and figure out what makes the most sense. So, yeah, that blanketed statement where people, of course, real estate agents always think it's a good time to buy. Well, it is always a good time to buy if you don't own.
Can't win if you're not playing.
Exactly.
The best time to buy is yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's people always confuse, I think, in my experience, they confuse not being able to buy right now. It's you might not be able to buy your dream house, the house you want right now, but you can buy a house, pay a little bit more, and because interest rates are high. No one's saying they're not.
Well, yeah, I mean, compared to 2 years ago, for
That's
sure.
what I'm saying.
I mean, right now we're operating on semi-average interest rates over the last 25 years.
Yeah, over the long term, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what they're saying is high, high, high.
Sure, sure.
So you don't buy your dream house. You buy a house you can afford right now. Sit on it for a while. You take the money you made from that when you sell it, when the prices go back up, and then you get one step closer to the house you really want.
Correct.
But if you're not playing, you're just sitting on the bench, you're not going to win.
Well, and you got to live somewhere.
You got to live somewhere.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The only person that can, kind of debate me in the argument and win is the guy or girl who lives at home with his parents rent-free. If that's you, well, God bless your parents.
You're probably pretty good. Yeah.
But if you're paying rent, man, and you want to know if it's a good time to buy, it is.
Yeah. I agree. That's what I tell everyone, and that goes right back to the education thing. People just don't really know. They know what their uncle said or their friend said, and it's such word of mouth. And even so, education, like you said, that 20% you won't ever know because it's always changing. My grandfather was a real estate agent, a broker, very, very successful. He's 84 now.
Yeah.
He doesn't know a thing about what's going on right now because his time was 50 years ago, and he was very good then. But that's when there was no social media, nothing was automated. So he put a sign in his front yard, and all his friends bought houses from him or ranches or whatever he did, and that was it.
Filling out paper contracts and making calls on payphones.
Yep. And he said his test, when he got his license, I don't know if he could 100% remember that far back, but he said it was like 5 questions or something. You just went in and applied for it.
Surprised there even was a test.
Exactly. Yeah, there might not have been. But even the people that made their living and made their life on real estate, if you're not keeping up with it and doing the CE, the continued education, and doing things like this and having discussions with people in the industry, even then you can be in the industry and not know what's going on if you don't make an effort to keep up with it.
Yeah. So one of the things I always ask people who come on here is like, I feel like I kind of already covered my part where there's always something present time that is coming up in my business that I'm like, man, I should just do a video quickly on this. Is there anything, I mean, you talked about the education, a little bit of it, but is there any kind of question that keeps coming up or situation that you keep running into over the last maybe, let's just call it 30 days, that you feel like seems to be top of mind to you, that if you could just do a public service announcement to your potential clients, say, hey guys, for the record.
I think we kind of already did it, honestly, with the now's a good time to buy thing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get, and I'm talking to a lot of people to do this. I'm not just going to give my opinion. I want to get your opinion on this.
Sure.
Where we think the market's going to go. Because I've heard we're going to have a good winter. I heard summer. When summer comes around next year, it's going to be another frenzy. We know it's coming, but what are your opinions on what it looks like in the next year or so?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that so again, just to give context, I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. I was there pre-08, so this is technically my 4th economic downturn.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I recognize every time stuff like this happens and every time people want predictions is it's easy to predict what's going to happen. It's very difficult to predict when.
Yeah.
Right? But when it happens quickly. Yeah. And typically people are kind of like looking in the rear view mirror. So I talked about this yesterday with one of the agents that was on here. This is just an example of how there's such a lag, right? So we started seeing interest rates rising in March of 2022. So we've had 18 months right now of rising interest rates that have either risen or stayed, but what would be considered much higher than what we had prior to March of 2022.
Yeah.
When I say that to people, they go, oh my gosh, 18 months. I didn't even think it was that long because things move quickly.
Yeah.
And 18 months ago, we as lenders started talking about 2-1 buy downs, where you could request seller concessions so that the seller would give you money to basically buy your interest rate down. In some cases, as low as like 4%.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were like shouting it from the rooftops, and I wasn't seeing any 2-1 buy downs ever, right? I think I can go into a million reasons why, But flash forward to here we are 18 months later, and now I'm seeing them on about 50% of the transactions that we're doing. We're seeing builders that are doing it, doing permanent buy downs on every single transaction. Every single new build that is sold right now is doing some form of an interest rate buy down.
Yeah, they're very competitive right now.
Right. And so with that being said, you've got 18 months of lenders suggesting a solution, and it took over a year for people to figure that out.
Yeah.
So when you ask me about market predictions, the one thing that we in this business struggle on is that we are dealing with a part of the equation that is the herd.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a math problem in the sense of like, well, here's where the economy is, here's where inflation is. If interest rates get to here, here's what will happen. Because I guarantee you, even if interest rates today, something crazy happened in the economy and interest rates drop by 2%, I am very, very convinced that you would think things would start to take off overnight.
It would take a little bit.
It would take time because every consumer would go 2%. Oh, they're lowered now. Let's see if they go even lower.
Let's see the first one to do it, and if it works out for him.
It is. It's like watching those wildebeests cross the freaking Nile, and there's all the crocodiles.
It's exactly the image I was thinking just now.
It's wild.
It's a good point.
So again, going back to market predictions, it's like I can tell you, what it's going to take to make certain things happen, but even when those things all align,
it's still going to take a minute.
Well, when will the herd cross the Nile, right? But at the end of the day, I think that, we're seeing a lot of indicators with jobs and inflations. I mean, the Fed seems to be getting things slowly but surely under control. There was a lot of speculation that we were maybe going to see things pick up this spring, and not just because of, like economic indicators, but more along the lines of a combination where Fed getting things under control, but then people kind of becoming a little more accustomed to higher rates.
Yeah.
But we really didn't see that, right? I mean, it really does feel a lot like people are, I don't know. I'm gonna hang on to my point. I think that they're waiting for other people to move.
Yeah.
I don't think, because one of the questions I've been asking a lot of agents, and you don't have to go into this because it's super complicated, but it's like I've been asking agents, number one, what sort of reduction in terms of interest rates do we need to get to where you feel like things are going to just really get busy?
Yeah.
And do you think that that's even a possibility? Because there's a large part of me that thinks there's a strong possibility that even if rates were to drop into the, 5% or, 6% range, I don't think it is going to be this wild feeding frenzy like everybody thinks. I feel like people are still going to wait.
Yeah.
And then watch. That'll happen. We'll all sit around. And then one day it'll just get busy and you won't know why.
Yeah.
You'll be like, rates have been this low for 6 months. Why did it take 6 months for people to actually start buying?
Yeah, humans are weird. They just kind of go with
Amen.
the flow. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Is like my answer is just I don't know.
Well, it's not an I don't know.
Happen.
You would think, okay, economically, like we're starting to see interest rates rebound. This week has been a fairly good week, and to be quite honest, I don't like to bring politics into my podcast, but it is an election year next year.
True.
And that seems to somehow always make a difference. So I am hopeful that we're probably going to see a good increase. And what by good, I mean like healthy. People's attitudes are going to be up. I think rates will be a little down.
Yeah.
I anticipate seeing things in the spring.
Yeah. What
does that say for us in this market from now until spring? I think we're going to see things the way they are right now. Whatever, market you feel like we're in right now, and I'll actually push that to the real estate agent, because I know certain agents seem to be doing really, really well. I know other agents that feel like it's slow. Whatever market you are in right now, if you're going to continue the same type of behavior, you're going to continue to have that sort of market until the spring.
Yep.
That's my prediction.
Yeah, I like right now, I feel like it's up to us. Like it's directly related to how much work I put in. Like nobody's getting lucky right now. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I think it'll definitely get better, but we're just here until it does. You just got to hold on, do as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other real estate topics, things you want to get out to your raving fans?
No, not at the moment. I mean, I would say watch my social media channels, and I'll be doing those running videos as much as possible.
Where do we find those?
Those are going to be on the Living in Austin, Texas channel.
Okay.
That's the Lone Wolf Realty Group channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of my stuff is at Real Estate Russ.
Right on. Well, now that we've got you all warmed up and, you've been chatting away and you probably feel a little more comfortable, this is when I tell everybody, go ahead and stare into that camera real quick. Give me your quick introduction, your 30-second pitch, whatever you want. Don't look at me, and we'll cut loose.
Okay. My name is Russ Cullum. I am with the Lone Wolf Realty Group team, which is under Coldwell Banker. I'm here in the Austin, Texas area, so I serve anything near Austin. I even have some listings in Houston, but I'm here to help buying, selling, investing, whatever you need. My number is 830-688-2097, and my email is russ.cullum@cbrealty.com, and you can find me on all socials at Real Estate Russ.
There it is. Killed it.
Yep.
Nice work, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Woo! You did good.
Not too bad.